All right, welcome back. Now that you know your control flows, you can technically solve most logical problems using variables, functions, loops, etc., etc. Now you have the main building blocks of writing programs. So in terms of programming, I would say you now know the fundamentals. You might not know much about computer science, software engineering, or computer architecture. You might still have many questions in terms of computer engineering, but you definitely know how to program now. You do have the building blocks. However, the hard part is being creative with it. Like drawing, you can draw a straight line, curved line, and maybe circles, and that's basically your fundamentals, but you have to put them together in creative ways to create something worthwhile. It's the same with programming. So, the thing we'll learn next, which you could have technically learned by yourself by playing around with loops, is nested loops right here. And what nested loops mean is it just means putting a loop inside of a loop. So this loop is inside of this loop. Let's just look at what this piece of code does, and we'll go from here. Right now, you might not know exactly what nested loops are for, but we will show you in an example a little bit later on. But first, let's try to understand what this code is doing. So this code starts with an outer loop and then an inner loop. For the outer loop, you loop through this list, which is 1, 2, 3, and I will take on the value of 1, 2, then 3. So let's write something here. You have the variable I here, okay? And then first, it is a 1. And then, you know what? I'll write another variable here. And then I'll also write, let's see, the output. Output meaning what is on the screen first, because you have a print function here. First, in the first loop, I takes on the value 1. And then what's the next statement? The next statement says for j in 4, 5, 6, okay, so j takes on the value 4 because that is the first element, okay? And then once you're in this loop, you want to print I plus j as a string. So it becomes 14 because 1 and 4, 14, right? And then what happens is j is 4, but then you finish the loop. After you finish this iteration, what happens? You take on the next value. The next value is 5. And then, so j equals 5. I hasn't changed yet because you haven't finished this part of the statement yet because you're still looping through j, right? Because you need to finish this whole set of instructions before I can take on number 2. And we're not done here yet. So what happens here? I is still 1, so then the output will be 15 because 1 plus 5, or more like 1 concatenate with 5, we get 15. And let me add some commas there to make it more readable. And then next you have 6, so j takes on 6, and then same thing, it becomes 16. Now finally, you've finished looping through that. So basically what happened was during the first iteration of the outer loop, this one, the inner loop loops 3 times. So while I is equal to 1, j was equal to 4, then 5, then 6. And then finally, I becomes 2 because you're finally done with this part of the instruction. And then finally, I is 2 here. And then j will take on, what will j take on? There's nothing after 6. Well, technically, this is a new loop now. It's actually a brand new loop because you're initializing the loop right here. So now that I is equal to 2, this is technically a new for loop, a new inner for loop. So j will take on 4, and then 5, and then 6 again. And then the output, we're going to see 24, 25, 26. And then same thing for the last one, 3, and then again 4, 5, 6. And then we're going to see the output 34, 35, and 36. So that's how this inner loop and outer loop work together to creating something like this. All right, so what are nested loops useful for? Usually when you have either 2 arrays or 2 different index that you want to use within your list, then it can be useful to have 2 different sets of variables and then use 2 different loops to loop through them. But for now, I'm going to show you a simple example. It's a little bit of a toy example, but it's also pretty useful in the future because I will ask you to create functions relating to matrices. This is just a little bit of a preview, but with matrix, we will most definitely use nested loops. Just a little hint, matrices are basically a list of lists, which we'll look at in the future. So let's write a program that prints a pyramid. Okay, I'm gonna draw the pyramid first, and then I'll let you think about how you can print this pyramid. All right, so I've written the specification. You wanna write a function that takes in a parameter, n, and n determines the size of your pyramid. So for example, if we print a pyramid of size 5, we will get 5 rows of O's, right? And each line will increase in the number of O's. So here you see, it's not really a pyramid, it's more of a right triangle, but close enough. And then here, print pyramid 3, we have 3 lines, and then each of them increases in the number of O's. So how would you do that? Well, let's keep it simple. Let's break it down. So first, I would know that I have to print 5 times, or sorry, n times, right? If n equals 5, I have to print 5 times. Then how do we print 5 times? Well, we can use a loop for I in range n. All right, we remember what range is. And then I, okay, so now we have I just want to print this many times. Let's just print an O here. Okay, let's see what that gives. It's always good to do things step by step. It's totally cool if you don't finish writing the function right away and then still play with it so that you can build on top of it, because sometimes it helps for you to understand what your program is actually doing. Rather than trying to write a very complicated function, you could write parts of the function one by one, test them out, and then put them together so that the function executes the way you want it to. So let's say print pyramid 5. What does that give me? It gives me 5 lines. All right, we're almost there. There's 5 lines of O's, but the only thing missing are the 2 O's and then 3 O's, 4 O's, 5 O's. Okay, so how would we do that? How about I somehow put another loop inside of it? Okay, so I know I have to print 5 lines, but each line will be a little bit different, right? How about I initialize a variable called line to print? This is the line that I want to print, okay? Let's just put it empty for now. And then I want to have an inner loop, and then maybe we'll use J this time for J in range. Not sure what yet. Let's just say, let's just give it 5, okay? And then what I want to do here is line to print. I want to add a character to my line to print. Let's say I want to add O to it, okay? And then later on, after we finish the inner loop, we still want to do something else. We want to actually print the line. Line to print. Okay. Let's try this out, see what happens. Print pyramid 5. All right, cool. So now we almost got it. We have like a bunch of O's everywhere. The only difference is that this time we're actually creating this line O by O. So we've gone this loop 5 times so that we added 5 O's to the line to print. So how can we make sure that each iteration, each outer iteration, the inner iteration will loop 1 time, then 2 times, then 3 times, then 4 times, then 5 times? Well, you do know that I, for the first iteration, it's 0. The value of I is 0. Then the value of I is 1. Then the value of I is 2. Then the value of I is 3. So maybe we can use that. How about we put it here, right? If I equals 0, then range of 0. Let's see what that gives. List range 0. It gives you an empty list. And then if range of 1, it gives you 0. Okay, so at 0, it doesn't really do anything. The loop doesn't do anything because it's an empty list. And then if I equals 1, then we get a list containing 0. Range equals 2, we get 0 and 1. So maybe we can use this. And then because I becomes 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, and then the inner loop is going to have more and more iteration every time. So let's try this out. Now we run this. We print pyramid, and then we put 5. Ooh, that looks almost correct. The only thing that's different is that this one is an empty string, and at the end, we only have 4 O's instead of 5. So what can we do to change it? We just need to add 1 O to all of it. So how would we do that? Well, there are different solutions. For me, I think the easiest one is just to add an O here. So the line to print, you start with an O already, and then you just append the other O's. So what happens is every line will have 1 O, and then you append either 0 O's, 1 O's, 2 O's, or 3 O's, or 4 O's, if n equals 5. And then there you go, there you have it. And then just for fun, maybe we can change the function a little bit, but still make it work, just so that we can practice. So I want line to print to start at nothing. How would you do that? One thing you can do is maybe increase the range by 1, right? So if I equals 0, then it's not range of 0 anymore, it's range of 1. So let's try that. Print pyramid 5, and then yeah, that still works. Let's try to think of another way of doing it. This one, you might not know unless you know the trick, but it's a string manipulation. So what we can do is we can actually do this. We can actually give O and then multiply by I plus 1. Let's see if that works. I'm not 100% sure, but it doesn't hurt to try. Print pyramid 5. Oh, that works. Do you know why that works? It's because, apparently, you can multiply strings by numbers. So if you do hello times 5, it's going to say hello 5 times, right? So what I did was hello, I gave it O, and then I multiplied by 5, it's going to give you 5 lines. And because range of 5, I'm iterating through this list, then I'm multiplying the number of O's by 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. But I don't want 0 in the beginning, because if I had just I, then I would get an empty line for the first line, which is not what I want. Which is why I added plus 1. Yeah, just a little fun trick in terms of string manipulation. It's not related to this lesson, but you know, there's a lot of things you can do. You should definitely check out the Python documentation. But yeah, that's pretty much it, and that is nested loops for you. All right, I'll see you in the next one.